The first thing you need to do is get a baseline of the person who you want to engage. Now, this is when you observe them to get an idea of their normal behavior. And then if anything goes outside of that normal behavior, well, this is a clue that something just happened. It's called a significant shift. So either you said something wrong, you did the wrong thing, or you did the right thing and they're just really engaged. It's being aware of whatever deviates from that baseline. So what are some examples of baseline? Well, some people are really still at their baseline. They don't move. Others are fidgety. Some have open body language and others are more closed off. The next thing that I look for is proximity. Are they standing too close to you or are they standing farther away? Do they lean in or do they lean away? What is their space bubble that they start off with? Now, one of the ways to test this is when you shake hands with someone. If you lean in and they don't move, then they have a small space bubble. But if you lean in when you shake hands and they take a step back, then that is their distance point. Within 3 seconds, you know how to engage with this person. Now, the next one is eye contact. Some people are really great at making strong eye contact. While others, their eyes have to move around while they are collecting their thoughts that they're trying to share. And again, that's not good or bad. It's just their baseline. This is their starting point. And then there's dominance level. Now we're talking about how much space they take up. Now there are a few ways to look at dominance. One, they take up territory. They take up space. They have big gestures. How dominant are they? Next, are they open or closed? Are they open to you? Or are they angled away and maybe closed off? So how about their facial expressions? Do they have an easygoing smile? Or do they have a bitchy resting face? What's the norm for them? Also noises. Now this plays more towards the auditory people. So some will tap, especially when they're trying to make a point, or they'll make a sound like, My sister-in-law does this. Another one, this is more subtle, but once you start to see it, it is going to open so many doors. And this is tension. Some people's baseline is very tense. They just hold a lot more tension. Men in particular, they hold a lot of tension in their chest and their shoulders. And then, some people are just more relaxed. They're chill, they're cool, just hanging out so that they have less tension in their bodies. Voice is also affected by tension. And then there's speed, and then there's volume of their voice. And then there's word choice. Do they use short, simple words? Do they use a lot of words with a lot of syllables in them? Or do they have a more intelligent way of speaking? Are they illustrative? Do they get to the point? Do they use pauses? So some people need to take a lot of time to think things through, and they pause before they speak. And then there are acknowledgement filters. Acknowledgement filters are yeah, oh, I know. If they use a lot of acknowledgement filters, that is their subconscious way of saying that you have been heard. I've heard you. I get it. It doesn't necessarily mean agreement, but you have been heard. Then what happens when they speak and you don't use acknowledgement filters and you're just silent? For you, that might be a sign of respect, that I'm listening and that I'm not jumping in. But for them, they're not getting the acknowledgement that they need along the way. So this is one of the ways that we learned about connecting in a deeper way in week 3, when we talked about matching and mirroring their words. These are the things that we're looking for. And then we connect these pieces as we continue to engage them. This is their baseline. Then we look for significant shifts from that baseline. For example, once you concluded that this person is, let's say, normally still, talks in a full voice, pauses before she speaks, she could make strong eye contact, she's dominant, and she leans in towards me. Well, that's a great baseline. But what happens when this person deviates from that baseline? So She's still talking in that full tone. She's fairly dominant, but all of a sudden, she leans back in her chair and she turns away. Was it the question that caused that? What caused this seemingly negative response within this conversation? Is it that I said something that she didn't like? Or is it that I hit on a trigger unknowingly? That maybe I brought up a word or a phrase or an idea that connects to a negative past experience that she may have had with someone? What most people do when this happens is they notice the shift, but they continue to plow through with their original plan because they don't know any better. They're just like, this is the plan. This is what I'm going for. This is what I'm going to do. But instead, and I highly recommend that you use this technique as well, is to call it out. Just call out what you just saw. Call it out and say, I feel like something didn't quite resonate with you. Can you tell me what happened? Or, I feel like I just hit something that didn't feel right for you. Can you tell me more about it? This also gives you an opportunity to deal with that internal objection. When you call it out, the rapport gets stronger. And that's the beauty of these significant shifts. Let's say that you're talking to a person who normally speaks with a lot of volume. And then all of a sudden, after you ask them a question, their voice softens. This is a significant shift too, and something for you to notice and address. So go ahead and address it. But what if somebody starts off being kind of quiet, and then as the conversation goes, they get louder? What does that tell you about the conversation? That they're engaged? Excited? It might mean that they're starting to feel more comfortable with you, and that the rapport is building. So things to be aware of when you observe and compare normal behavior and significant shifts. Did they lean away? Sigh or go, Do they smile or do they purse their lips? Do they fidget? Now here's another scenario. What happens when they start off quiet and then they start to get louder and more excited, but you stay in quiet? It could mean you're mismatched in that moment. And when they start to feel comfortable and they start to get louder, but you stay in the quiet, then they, at that gut level, could be feeling, oh, maybe this isn't reciprocal rapport. And that conversation could fizzle. So take everything you see at face value. No judgments attached at all. It's actually going to help you foster stronger connections, more connections, because you're not coming in with all of these judgments. You're coming in curious. You are coming in with a curious mindset. Now, what you're learning here is not a skill. It's actually a set of skills put together. So for you to develop this awareness, today, pay attention to body language. Just pay attention and be on the lookout for the clues that we were talking about. And then tomorrow, practice observing the body language of others. And the day after that, practice staying in rapport, like you learned last week. That's all you're going to do. You're practicing these skills, and you're giving yourself those personal little missions. Over time, everything is going to come together, and you're going to get a fuller picture, and things happen a whole lot faster.